here we are on Cinema Discovery Project. We're gonna talk Star Wars. I'm here with Luke Skywalker. He's gonna join me, or who's gonna die?
Oh, Mr. Palpatine, you sound so
My name's not
alive
Palpatine.
and
My name's Darth
young.
Sidious.
Oh,
I
sorry,
said Darth
sorry.
Sidious. That's no,
Yeah.
Darth Sidious. Whew.
What is interesting is that nobody knows that you're Palpatine or Darth Sidious, yet you refer to yourself as both.
I am everybody.
Really breaking everything. Well, you're breaking all the rules,
Yes.
kind of similar to how Rise of Skywalker broke some certain rules.
You could
and
say
whatnot. But this is a brand new episode of the Cinema Discovery Project with me, Andrew Cabral, and co-host extraordinaire Stephen Billings.
I'm extraordinary.
Extraordinaire. I don't know. That's a fancy word that I like to throw out sometimes. But we are finally doing an episode about Star Wars. It's only taken us, a year and a half?
I don't know. Didn't we do it? Didn't we do a
into
Star
it?
Wars episode before?
I don't think we have.
Maybe
We've
not,
talked about
maybe
Star
not.
Wars many, many times.
I thought we did.
I don't think we have. At least not one entirely dedicated to
I
Star
guess
Wars.
not.
And this was not really entirely dedicated. We're specifically focusing on Rise of Skywalker, Episode 9, which just came out December 20th of 2019. And we are now in January of 2020, so it's been a few weeks. And so we will be talking spoilers. It will be spoiler heavy with all of our thoughts about the movie, our positives, our negatives, all those things. But I guess some background that I'm not sure if the audience really needs, but Steven and I are both big Star Wars fans. It's been a part of our lives, I think, since we were both children. For me, it started out on VHS. Steven, I assume, similar circumstances because we're both around the same age. And then, of course, the special editions came out in theaters. I remember going to see those. Prequels were part of my childhood when I was like, my teenage years were going to see the prequels a bunch of times during the summers. And now we have the sequel series, now that we are all Steve and I are both in our mid to late 20s. Essentially,
I'm
2015.
30.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Now
We're both in our
well.
early 30s.
Yeah, so it started in our late 20s and now ended in our early 30s.
That's
that accurate
accurate.
to say?
Yes.
What's crazy is they came out with 3 episodic films in 4 years, which seems very quick. Like, it felt like just the other day we were watching episode 7. And now we're, finishing up this new trilogy, and they're calling it the final one in the Skywalker series. And, it's supposed to be this big final climactic, all-encompassing movie. And I didn't really feel that while watching it. I didn't get that sense of closure. I didn't get that sense of, tying them all together and all that kind of stuff. And for me, it's not a film that I hate. I know a lot of Star Wars fans out there hate the sequel trilogy. They hate this movie. They hated The Last Jedi. Some people hated The Last Jedi but like this movie. I mean, the Star Wars fandom is a bit of a mess right now. And it's not really something I don't want to spend too much time on, but there's a lot of infighting, a lot of conflict, and there's a lot of positivity and negativity.
Well, I think the thing that we're really fighting against is the nostalgia machine.
Right.
A lot of the core fans of Star Wars, hold on to the original trilogy as the end all be all. And nothing really lives up to it, and I don't think there really can be anything because it was a lightning in a bottle. And if I'm being honest, though we hold these movies up as high as we do, they're all flawed themselves.
Of course.
And I don't think a lot of fans can really admit that to themselves. So then when these new movies come out and they're not perfect, we tend to cry about them. Now, I don't really hold the original trilogy up. I just try to look at movies all kind of very similarly. Obviously, depending on what the movie's audience is kind of what it's going for, I change my, opinions. But, because some people, I've had friends and tell me, Steven, you got to watch Star Wars as a child. And I'm like, well, I mean, I get that idea, and I watch certain kids' movies thinking about how this can be good for kids, but it shouldn't mean that we shouldn't start having a high standard for even kids' movies. Like, there needs to be a certain standard you need to hit, at least for me.
Well, Well, my idea is that I think every movie needs to be taken into a proper context. And I think, Star Wars is no exception. And I also think that there needs to be a lot more open-mindedness when it comes to kind of sacred, hallowed ground movies like a Star Wars or any other big popular, nostalgic franchise. And I think that there's a lot of closed-mindedness that's really, really leading to a lot of negativity that's coming into the fandom and stuff like that, and really coming into people's opinions. Like, there seems to be very black and white, like, oh, this is great or it's trash. And I'm like, I mean, you got to be a little more nuanced than that, than talking about this. And that's where I kind of like to come in and be in all my reviews that I've done, whether it be on my YouTube channel, whether it be Steven and I talking on air or off air. I think it comes from both a positive and negative perspective, because all movies, I think, have positives and negatives. And Rise of Skywalker is no exception, and Star Wars movies are no exception and whatnot. I mean, some movies are more positives than negatives, or more negatives than positives, and really the movies are so subjective. And there are people who love this movie. There are people who love many movies that other people don't like, and I think there needs to be more open-mindedness to it, and more open discussion, because there seems to be a lot of closed-mindedness. But saying all of that, I guess we'll dive into it right now.
Well, I was going to say real quick that also with that is that, the reason why somebody like me and Andrew, we have a more of a critical eye for Star Wars is because that's just how we treat all movies. That's just how we watch movies. A lot of people that watch Star Wars to be entertained and to, that's fine. And that's why you watch that movie. And if you were entertained by Rise of Skywalker, then it's totally justified and that's great. We want you to like the movie. But you can't ask us to stop watching the movie the way we watch all movies. That's what I think it is people are upset that we have critical things to say about a movie that they love because we're not watching it just for pure entertainment. And it's like,
I would say we're watching it with entertainment in mind, as well as being analytical.
But the thing
is, what I mean? I think that factors into it.
That's for us. That is entertainment. It's part of the entertainment. That's true. For us, part of the joy of watching movies is being able to get a feeling of completeness, not just from action or comedy in the movie, but the themes and them things and pacing, great pacing, and all that stuff excites us to liking a movie even more. All that stuff
we're probably going to give you a taste of like what our minds are watching the movie when we talk about this movie here. But I think we're also coming from, at least when I'm watching a movie, the first things I look for are filmmaking stuff.
Yeah, that's how our minds work. Yeah.
That's how my mind works, and then I'm looking for and then plot things I think are secondary. Yeah. You know what I mean? If a movie's exceptionally made well, like this movie's amazing, but the plot is kind of lacking, chances are I'm going to look at it more favorably than perhaps somebody who's looking for a great plot and not paying attention to filmmaking techniques, and that's just because, that's what I focus on.
Yeah, for me, the things that pop up for me is thematic stuff. When there's interesting thematics at play, and then with that, maybe there's a character study I like character study films. So that stuff is the stuff that engages me, even if a movie is not necessarily the most well-rounded movie, but if they're trying to go for something interesting with themes or with character, then that's the stuff that brings me in. So, but yeah, with all that said, getting where we're coming from, I guess we'll get into the movie. We're not going to go plot point by plot point.
No, it's not a spotlight.
It's not a spotlight, but we're going to try to talk about the movie as broadly as we can without getting too detailed. But we are going to spoil the shit out of the movie.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, most definitely.
So where do you want to start?
I mean, start right at the beginning.
Well, the crawl.
Start right at the beginning of the film. The crawl. The Star Wars is notorious for its crawl. It's notorious for just that bombastic, flared opening where the Lucasfilm thing comes up. The 20th Century Fox fanfare.
Well, not anymore. Not anymore. But
it used to be. Used to be. I mean, Disney could technically do it now since they own Fox.
But nah, they don't want to do that.
It's Lucasfilm. It shows up, and then I tell you, Steven, there's nothing like hearing that. Yeah. Nothing like this feeling when just boom, the music hits, John Williams' Star Wars theme, and then the opening crawl.
Then,
happens.
unfortunately,
And
with this open crawl, the first line really was like disturbed me.
Because what does it say? Like it was
the
just,
dead
like,
speaks or something like that.
The dead speaks, and it was only like a 2-paragraph crawl.
Yeah.
It wasn't long, and I'm like, we may need more information here because the film takes place. I want to say like a year
it's
after
not that,
The Last
It's definitely
Jedi.
some space there, but it's not that long.
There's a time jump.
Yeah.
There's a time jump from the events of The Last Jedi to now, whether it's 6 months to a year. I'm not quite sure, but there's a time jump, and and apparently within that time jump, the Emperor has returned out of nowhere, and apparently he sent like some type of mass galaxy-wide broadcast from death, presumably death. And I'm like, okay, I guess I can buy it. And there's a lot of things in this movie you kind of have to go with.
You just got to go with
it. That's you just got to go with it. You got to roll with it because there's gaps in the movie for me when it comes to information we need as viewers in order to put this film together. But we'll get to that as we go along. But yeah, so he's back from the dead, apparently. And opening scene is Kylo Ren just taking dudes out.
Well, he's taking dudes out, and apparently
we don't even know where.
Well, we don't know where he is until after the fact, where we find out that he's actually on Mustafar.
Yeah, Steven, this is you're gonna hear me complain about this a lot. Why didn't they add like a few second wide shot of the planet Mustafar? Yeah. Star Wars fans would have known what it looks like, or even if you want to say Mustafar, like put a label up saying Mustafar. Or do whatever, because it would have been nice to know, because apparently in the beginning of this movie, he goes to Darth Vader's castle on Mustafar. That's something that connects directly to, the original time frame of the original trilogy, where we saw in Rogue One that Darth Vader has a castle on Mustafar. It's part of the canon. I think we've seen it in the books and the comic books and all that kind of stuff. Yet again, that's just connecting all of the franchise. It would have been nice as viewers to just have that.
Well, that
Star Wars fans in
general.
general.
And the fact that he's there and he's fighting these characters that we don't know why he's fighting them.
Yeah, it's just like dudes he's just murdering for no reason, which is problematic because we already know that Kylo Ren is a bad guy doing bad things. And in the film, we all kind of assumed that he was going to get a redemption arc eventually anyway. Opening the movie with him cutting people mercilessly is not a great way to set up a redemption arc in the same movie.
Not necessarily. And then on top of this, apparently he somehow found out there's a wayfinder, this compass thingy that can lead him to where the Emperor is, which apparently this was set up in advance, way ahead of time apparently, which I can buy that because I've read canon books. If you read new canon books, you know that the Emperor was up to something. He knew there was something out in unknown region area that was drawing him out there, and that he was preparing for something. So you can kind of believe it, but the thing is like you said, if you're somebody that just watches the movies, you're completely lost.
Oh, you're completely lost because they don't set up that very, very well. They don't give the necessary information to the viewer, so you kind of just have to go along for the ride.
It's like watching a cartoon on TV, where you just you see things and you just accept them because it's a cartoon. But in film, in live action films, you got to be a little bit more, descriptive and a little bit more. You have to give a little bit more. I'm not saying spoon feed the audience, but this is important stuff.
The first act of this movie is very problematic because it's choppy when it comes to setting up the plot for the film. We're cutting from moment to moment. We're doing,
the things that
classic
they
Star Wars
decided
wipes.
Not to explain are things that are more interesting to me than some of the things that happened in the movie.
Yes, and it kind of brings us, the Wayfinder takes you to this secret Sith planet called Exegol. Yeah. That is way out there.
He had to go through like a black hole, something to even get out to it. Like it was.
Yeah, basically it's way out there, uncharted. I guess it's kind of a callback to how Camino was uncharted back in episode 2. I don't know. I'm just making connections that may or may not be there. So the very next scene is, and this is all done without real exposition or anything. He just, Kylo Ren just goes there, and he goes to the Sith temple, and lo and behold, we have Emperor Palpatine back from the dead. And what we learned there in a very quick scene that's not given much information is that Snoke was apparently just a
puppet.
A puppet, like that they grew in a jar there or something. Yeah. There was a lot of like exposition and stuff there that I think we needed to know what the heck was going on there.
I haven't decided whether I believe that he was controlling the body of Snoke or that Snoke was actually a being that was real, that he just influenced him from afar.
Well, I had this kind of, I mean, Steven, you and I talked about it, I think, after Last Jedi, how perhaps Snoke was a Palpatine puppet.
Yeah, it was a theory I had a long time ago.
That's why his death wasn't like everybody made a big deal about it, but then I guess like it's not a big deal now because I guess he wasn't an important character.
Yeah.
Unfortunately for me, bringing back the Emperor kind of takes away from what things you established in the first and second film, and if you're making a franchise, you're already kind of cutting your legs off.
It also hurts the original trilogy too.
It really does.
It really hurts what happens at the end of Return of the Jedi.
Yeah, the whole idea of Return of the Jedi is the redemption of Anakin Skywalker. Is, Luke Skywalker also resisting the temptation of Emperor Palpatine to turn to the dark side, to take his place take the place of his father as his new apprentice, and Anakin Skywalker coming back to the light and saving his son. That goes all out the window when you realize that the Emperor can just resurrect himself. Yeah. And in a way that we don't even know.
We don't even know.
It's never mentioned how he survived.
He's over Endor, the moon of Endor, and he's in the Death Star, which he falls down a shaft, and then after that fucking thing explodes and falls to the planet, and then somehow he gets out into unknown space to this place. And how did that happen? I'd love to know.
That would have been like and thing is, like, he could have, exposition is something that's used a lot. People think it's lazy, but if you're going to make these leaps with plot, you're going to have to use it in order to save your ass when it comes to writing screenplay. Yeah. And it's just not there. Whether it was cut for time or it was never there at all, I'm not sure. But it's something that would have been nice, and it would have been like, it wouldn't have been so long or so elaborate that they couldn't have added it in, and it wouldn't have taken up more than like a minute or whatever, less than a minute. Like,
the thing is
you could he didn't even have to survive and the attack on Endor. They could have explained it like that he had something, he had a backup plan that he created beforehand. And then it just took 30 years for it to come to real fruition, for him to be clone. I mean, we've got clones. Just have him be a clone of himself.
The thing to me is this is a big deal. This is something that's brought up by everybody, but this particular plot point is the main thing that we start to talk about why there was no real plan for this trilogy. Like, I mean, this stuff was kind of like just taped together or duct taped together at the last minute to bring.
For the most part, I think what is interesting is the strongest part, I think, of the sequel trilogy is that its thematic depth, I think, is actually really good, and I think the characters are interesting.
Well, I think Kylo Ren was done with them.
Kylo Ren is very interesting, and Kylo Ren is, he's confronted now with the Emperor, and he finds out that all the voices he's been hearing in his head, all the influence that has been corrupting him all of this time has been the Emperor. And in a way, that kind of makes you feel sympathy towards Kylo Ren, because he's kind of an abused person.
Yeah. I mean, though we could see kind of where his story was going to go, he still was the most interesting part because first of all, Adam Driver's probably the best actor in the sequel.
He's really good.
He's really good. It was. I think that the main thing about this new trilogy is about legacy, and how legacy doesn't have to necessarily decide your future. That's kind of so I agree with you. The themes are definitely there. I think with a lot of the characters, they had great starts, but they did not know where to go with them, especially the supporting characters.
Well, you know my theory about this. I've talked to you about it off air. Is I think that upon the acquisition of Lucasfilm by Disney, I think initially they put all of their effort into making Force Awakens the best they possibly could.
Yeah.
Where I think they just put all of their effort into it because they wanted to, revive Star Wars. Star Wars hadn't had a movie in, at that they acquired it in 2012, so they hadn't had a movie in 8 years, and by the time Force Awakens would come out in 2015, they wouldn't have a movie in 10 years, and Star Wars needed a bit of a revival, a bit of bringing not only the old fans, but also the new generation of fans as well.
Because there was that at the time a lot more plight against the, prequels. Yeah.
Oh yeah, a lot of people hated the prequels, specifically the older Star Wars fans, and even the fans who grew up with it had like an epiphany that maybe these movies aren't as good as we thought they were when we were 12. You know what I mean? Because those movies were kind of made for 12-year-olds for the most part and younger. I know that's when I first saw Phantom Menace when I was 12. That's why I use that age distinction. But and so they had to revive it. So I think they put all their eggs in that episode 7 basket. And then at that point is when things kind of went a little all over the place with getting a new director and a new writer for episode 8. And from all what we heard is that he was writing episode 8 like even before episode 7 came out. Ryan Johnson was. And I mean, Steven and I have hinted at our feelings about episode 8. I love it.
It's my favorite
love it a lot.
The 3, I think.
I think it's one of the most well-made Star Wars films of all time. I think it's just stunning movie, and it's taking Star Wars in a direction that Star Wars hadn't been taken probably since Empire Strikes Back, since like 1980. And kind of breaking out of this box of Star Wars.
Well, it became somewhat self-aware of itself.
It became very self-aware, and it tried to take Star Wars in a more new and interesting way, from my perspective, from Steven's perspective. From
now, do we think it's perfect? No, we don't think it's perfect.
No, there are problems within it, but for me, what Rise of Skywalker does is try to not only retract the stuff from that film, but it tries to make new stuff on the fly without any foundation for it. And I understand wanting to do your own thing with your own movie. You know what I mean? Like J.J. Abrams wanted to have, more control over what he could put in this movie, make it his own, which is kind of what every filmmaker wants to do. But to kind of just do that without a foundation established first and try to establish a foundation and then build off of that foundation within the same movie that's only 2 hours and 20 minutes, you're gonna run into problems. That's where I feel like this film ran into problems when it came to plot structure. Like we've hinted at the beginning, there's just a lot of things thrown at us that has no sense of like, where are we coming from? Where's this information that we need in order to believe all this stuff? It's just not there. And then of course now we move, we're constantly going back and forth between, the good guys and the bad guys. That's the way Star Wars has kind of always been. But the good guys are also kind of problematic as well as what's going on with the bad guys, I guess. Because now we have Rey, who's our main hero protagonist, and her leap when it comes to her Force abilities is like light years. Yeah. And that's more of a plot problem than a filmmaking problem, but I think it's a writing problem. You could have still had her be powerful, but not be so unbelievably powerful, only to fit. It feels like they made her so powerful because they wanted her to fit within the story that they were making, as opposed to making the story fit her powers.
Yeah, I mean, she became a superhero basically. I mean, it's.
Oh yeah, she went like Super Saiyan.
Yeah, I mean, like even at the end of Last Jedi, she she was strong. She was pretty strong,
really strong. But this is like. Man.
Well, the thing is they try to explain it with something else that they decide that you just need to accept, which is that I like the connection between Kylo and Rey. They have this Force connection, and it's a diet, whatever he called it, a deity in the Force, a dyad in the Force.
The idea that they're connected, which is something that is picked up right from The Last Jedi, and we kind of thought that connection was I guess, made by the Emperor, or made by, I mean, Snoke, we were led to believe was made it in Last Jedi, but apparently it is indeed more than that. And it's interesting and both problematic for me, because it's interesting because I like this idea of that Force connection. We've seen that Force connection between Luke and Leia in the original trilogy, and how they're able to sense one another and interact with one another, even up and into Last Jedi. But it's also problematic for me because it really leans heavily on their lineage.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And what we learn in this movie, spoilers, if you haven't been spoiled yet, you're about to be spoiled now. Rey is a Palpatine.
Yeah.
And I say that with lackluster enthusiasm.
Yeah.
Because I don't think Rey needed to be a Palpatine to make her powerful or important.
Yeah, well, but this is my opinion on it. First of all, I'm okay with that connection, though I would have preferred the she's not related to anybody, because I think that creates a better message for the movie.
Yeah, I find it more fascinating that she's powerful within the Force, and she has this connection with Kylo Ren, who we know is connected to the Force through his lineage and whatnot. I find that more interesting because it shows that the Force is just so unpredictable, and so, you know, it's not put in a box in any way. You know what I mean? And to have
the Force Awakens,
Palpatine, I feel is safe.
The Force Awakens, you know, like that's how I felt about the first movie, where
like the Force evolved to a new level to adapt to something, or whatever.
But this is the other part of that, though. If they so though I prefer that. So if I'm dealing with the fact that she's Palpatine's granddaughter,
got it.
I would have preferred, if they did that, then I would have preferred them just keep Palpatine out of the movie, because you can get the same message across without bringing him back. You don't necessarily need to bring him back to deal with that idea of her being related to him and how that affects her. You don't need to bring him back. And Kylo Ren can still be the bad guy. And
Steven, he's not in this movie a lot.
He's not in the movie a lot, and the only kind of purpose he has is just to be the thing that will help redeem Kylo and help them, something for them to fight. But they could have come up. They could have had a new bad guy in this trilogy, and it not be Palpatine. You know.
You know what they could have done? They could have brought Snoke back. Make him come back from the dead. It would have been just as believable than the Emperor, as the Emperor.
Well, I mean, I think if they would have just introduced him as Plagueis, which is what everybody wanted in the first place. If you want fan service, there you go. Everybody wanted him to be Plagueis, and you know.
Well, I think there's a Plagueis connection with Palpatine being able to come back.
Well, there is,
because as we remember, I mean, he literally recites the same lines that he told Anakin back in Revenge of the Sith, where it's like, you know, the dark side has powers that could to be unnatural and all that stuff.
But the thing is, they don't explain any of that.
They don't really.
He's on this damn fucking planet.
He just says stuff,
and there's all these like old, like ancient Sith ghosts all around him.
Well, they're whatever. Like the cult of the Sith cult members.
Well, I don't think they're people. I think it's the. Oh. I thought that they were the ghosts of the Sith, but I don't know.
I didn't think
previous
they were
Siths.
Just cult members. Like they were like running this place while Palpatine was
I don't know.
gone.
I wasn't really sure. That's what I'm saying. Nothing was explained.
No, really, it wasn't. But let's get to some positive things.
Yeah, no, we're really being
going
mean.
down. What did you think of the use of Leia in this film? Because as we all know, Carrie Fisher passed away a year before Last Jedi came out. And she, of course, could not be in this film. She couldn't act in it because she was gone. But they decided to use unused footage and kind of manipulate it to inject her character into this film in certain ways and whatnot. And I think they did the best job with what they had. Yeah. Now, could they have used her in more interesting ways? Perhaps. I'm not sure how far the technology was or is to put her in the film more so.
Sure.
You know what I mean? I really, it's kind of a shame because you can kind of tell she would have had a much larger role in this film from what we know. This was going to be the Leia film as first film.
Yeah, I think Leia would have played a lot more of a mentor role in this movie to Rey. You would have gotten a lot more. The thing is I think that they did probably what they could. I do still think that it's obviously limiting. You can tell
it's very, very
you
limiting.
can tell she's saying things that don't necessarily
line up with the situation.
Like her reactions don't necessarily line up with certain things, and they obviously wrote the scenes around what she said.
Right.
So it's just very limiting and obviously limiting. So.
Right, and I kind of liked. I liked what they could. What they
I
did.
like what they
saw right from the beginning. What we understand, Leia was teaching Rey.
What she knew,
yeah, she was training her.
Yeah,
because what we learned in the movie, another spoiler, is that from what fans actually wanted, I wanted to see this. Back when I first saw Return of the Jedi, like back in 1995, I wanted to see this, and we got to see a little bit of it, and that was Luke training Leia in the ways of the Force. Leia, and we also learned that Leia had her own lightsaber.
Yeah,
which I thought was like I wasn't expecting that for a movie that was rather predictable. That was the most unpredictable thing, in my opinion, was seeing that flashback scene.
Yeah. Though once again the CGI Leia did not look good to me. It's pretty bad.
It did not look. Well, they lit it very, very low.
They did, but it still didn't look great.
They lit it low, the lighting was very low to kind of, I guess, hide some of it. From what I understand, I was just seeing an article right beforehand. I think they used Billie Lourd, Carrie Fisher's daughter, as a stand-in with the CGI, for the movements and stuff like that. And they lit it low to kind of mask it because they had to de-age. They would have had Carrie Fisher lived and they had shown that scene, they would have had to de-age them anyways because it was 30 years ago in Star Wars timeline. And I really like that, and it was very interesting how she stopped training because she sensed that her son would be what was going to happen to her son later on. Yeah, which I thought was very interesting and kind of. I would have liked to known more of that. Yeah,
that is an interesting plot point. Once again, more interesting things that never could be put in the movie.
Really get explored.
Never be explored. It's.
But the main plot of the movie is kind of like a classic Star Wars plot to me. It's a very safe.
MacGuffin here, safe, MacGuffin there.
I'm like we're going on an adventure. We're going planet hopping. We're going, we're trying to find something, which has kind of been always.
Sure, it's a classic adventure plot. Yeah,
a classic adventure plot. And what the plot of the movie really is that we haven't really delved into is that the Resistance is kind of once again still on its last legs. Although it looks like they've got a lot more people than we had at the end of Last Jedi. There seem to be a lot more people that have eventually showed up, even though Poe says, like, nobody showed up. But it looked like there were more people on this planet that I'm not even sure what the name of the planet they were hiding out on is. They never say it. It's just another forest planet where they're hiding in a bunch of trees and stuff. I mean, there's no real explanation as to that. So basically, they have to now find a way...
now that they've heard this video thing, Emperor's Back. Now they've heard about the Wayfinder, and they got to find the other Wayfinder, and so
which Rey read about in one of Luke's journals that she swiped.
He was looking for a way to get at to find this thing too. So and he never found it. So now they're just going off of his trail, and they go off to a planet. Her, Poe, and Finn, which Poe and Finn are just buddies and bickering and arguing with each other all the time.
They get intel. They get intel from an informant. That's a really fun scene with the Millennium Falcon and Chewbacca and Poe and Finn, and they have to get this intel from this informant and basically that's how they find out that the Emperor is back. Yeah. They refer to him as Palpatine, which is really interesting to me, like how they knew that he was Palpatine and not just the Emperor.
I guess it's something that it's something Leia might have told him. I don't know. I
guess technically she was around at the time, although she was just born when Emperor.
The thing is I think you have to assume most of the public doesn't look at him as a Sith. He's known as a political figure, Palpatine.
Palpatine. That makes sense. So he's back. They have to go find the Wayfinder, and they decide to go to where Luke was searching for one, and it happened to be like a Jedi hunter that he was looking for, and apparently this guy's last known location was on this planet called like Pesana or something, and they go there. And there, of course, it's another desert planet. You got to get in the desert.
Yeah.
There's only certain climates. And yeah, the guy he was a Jedi hunter named Ochi, which is an interesting
like that,
name.
yeah.
And then they go there, and this is where they find this dagger, like in these catacombs and stuff. And there's this big giant monster, and
this is where we learn that she can heal things. Yes, the scene where she heals the big snake thing.
Oh yeah.
This is where, and if you're, I'm sure most of you guys know this. At the same, just before the Rise of Skywalker came out,
this is a spoiler now for the Mandalorian.
Yeah, if you haven't seen the Mandalorian, don't listen anymore right here. But
if you're not interested in seeing the Mandalorian, then listen right ahead. So
Baby Yoda can heal things. So right before this came out, it's how we were supposed to be able to get eased into this. So we force healing is apparently a big thing now.
Which I'm like okay. I mean, it bothers me, Steven, because not that the child in the Mandalorian or Baby Yoda, whatever you want to refer to it, can do it, but the fact that now apparently Jedi can do it in general. You know what I mean? Like it's part of the Force abilities that one can learn to do. And I'm like, where the Jedi's been around for thousands of years and no one's been doing this.
The logic that I come to is like, look. Somehow Rey was able to learn this ability, right? So or
did she instinctively? It looks like she instinctively.
Well, I don't know, but the thing is there's been other great, powerful Jedi before her that did not know how to do this gift. Anakin didn't know how to do it, obviously, because that's what he was trying to do, was find out how to save his own family. Yoda never did it that I know of. Obi-Wan, Mace Windu. Like nobody knew how to do this thing. But suddenly, this character can. It's just too many conveniences.
It's there's leaps that are made within this movie.
You have to earn them.
I said, not earn them, but like get to them more organically than them just happening.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's the biggest problem I have with this movie is that the screenplay takes leaps and bounds and just moves things to fit an agenda, to fit a story that they really want. It shows a lot of contrived issues that I have with the screenplay. The screenplay was done by Chris Terrio, and I think with JJ doing the story. Let me look, because Chris Terrio he's an Oscar-winning writer, but I don't know if he was necessarily the right person for this film. From what I understand, I don't want to go off on this trail, Steven, so cut me off when
I'll cut you off when.
Yeah, Rise of Skywalker had a lot of production issues from the get-go. J.J. Abrams wasn't the original director. The screenplay is not the original screenplay. Initially, Colin Trevorrow was brought on, and then he left the project before they even finished the screenplay, before they even had him production or anything like that. They kind of only worked on this movie for the better part of 2 years before it came out. Like, from what I understand, like they probably started production in 2017. Probably late 2017, and there wasn't a lot of time from the time J.J. Abrams took over to the time they actually went into production. I don't think there was a lot of time for them to really figure out what this movie was supposed to be. It feels like this screenplay needed a few more passovers, needed a few more drafts to really get it tight. You know what I mean? To really refine it.
And to think about the shit that they were working towards.
Yeah, it feels like they were putting so much into it. And it wasn't edited down to be, a much smoother product. Yeah. You know what I mean? It feels like there's just holes in it throughout it, and there's like, how did we get from here to here? How did we get from here to there? And it just feels like this movie should have been probably an extra half hour to just straight up 3 hours long. And this brings me to something that came out recently. It's a theory. It's whatever. We don't really get into theories and whatnot. Apparently, there's
a JJ cut.
Like, there's a JJ cut. There you go.
There's
Steven,
a cut for everything that people are divisive on.
I mean, and this always happens. And for those of you out there who know this already, this will be old hat to you. The movies, the product you see and the cut you see when it gets to the theater or gets to your home or whatever, it's already gone through several cuts that were much, much longer. You know what I mean? It's kind of like anything. You know, you do your rough draft, and you edit that down, and then you rework it, and you edit that down, you rework it, and that's kind of the way movies are. So there's always going to be longer cuts that were out there at some point in time.
Sure.
Whether which cut is the preferred cut from the director is always where things get a little tricky, because sometimes the studio wants things their way, sometimes the filmmaker wants things their way, sometimes the screenwriter wants things their way. It's a power struggle there. It's a behind the scenes stuff that doesn't really get brought out into the public very often, but now with the internet being the way it is and just the world being the way it is, that stuff seems to come out more than it used to. So perhaps there is a longer cut of this movie out there, an extended cut, a JJ cut, director's cut, whatever. For me, I think this movie could have benefited from a longer cut, because there's so much being thrown into this movie that needs further explanation that we haven't even begun to delve into, and I don't think we'll be able to delve into all of the stuff that this movie needed to really get. And don't get
and I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be mean, but don't give us the whole it's going to be explained in a book or a comic book. That doesn't matter.
That stuff has already happened. That stuff's already started to come out. One of the things in this movie is we meet other new characters, and I'm like, this is a third movie trying to end a franchise, and we're introducing brand new characters.
Yeah, I did not understand. I did not understand that at all.
Like these characters could be cool, they could be awesome, but I don't know anything about them because I just met them 5 minutes ago.
Yeah, they're supposed to help us understand some of the characters we already have a little bit more. Like there's Curry Russell's character which we never see her face.
What was it? Her name was Zori, I believe.
And she knew Poe from back in the day. She apparently was she helped Spice run with him.
We learned that he's a Spice runner.
So suddenly Poe wasn't as much of a stand-up guy as we expected him to be.
But for example, like stuff like that, I don't really think I need to learn about in a third movie.
Yeah, that's like stuff you learn in the first two movies.
In the first movie, in the first two movies, or honestly, that's stuff you can put in a canon. Like in a comic book or a book, because they just the way they approach that type of information, it feels so anecdotal. Yeah. Like it really doesn't. It doesn't for me have a big impact on the character at this point in time, because we have to be focused in on the thing is the main overarching story.
If they'd have done their job right in the first two movies, if they'd have had a plan, we wouldn't need to learn much about our characters by this point. It's about what we need to do to push our characters, and not about learning more about their past. In the third movie.
In the third film, we really don't need character backstory coming out to flesh out their characters. We should be concentrated on their present actions and how their present actions dictate their characters. You know what I mean? I think they kind of concentrated on that with Finn more so than diving into his past, because we know what his past was from the first movie. That they pluck out, they take kids and they basically just draft them into being first order troopers or whatnot. We know that already.
And they introduced a new character that had the same history.
But it's like we don't have time to get into her story. We don't have time to understand where she's from or how. All we really know is like how that impact. How does that impact Finn's character, knowing that there were other stormtroopers who decided to quit?
So basically, she's only created to help Finn feel like he's not alone. That's
right, which is cool, which is really
good. But it still means that her character is only there to push up Finn and not to stand on her own.
Right, and what is crazy to me is that was the character whose name is what's her name, Jaina? No, let me look. No, I'm gonna look up her name, the character's name, because it was Jaina, Jannah. So Jaina, portrayed by Naomi Aki? Yeah, Aki. She was supposed to be Lando Calrissian's daughter. And we had no hint at that throughout this movie. What we learned is that apparently in the visual dictionary that comes out for all these films, that she's Lando's long-lost daughter. Like, at one point, Lando, like, his child was stolen from him. And he never was able to find her. And
I'll be honest with you, I didn't really know that. I didn't know that. And now that I know it, it just bothers me. Because once again, we have to be related to somebody. Somebody has to be related to somebody.
Well, not only that, but like they have a really like awkward.
Oh my god!
Like talk at the end of the movie that has no like. There's no background there other than these two characters.
Honestly,
for the first
that
time.
Scene came off to me as him hitting on her. That's what it sounded like to me.
Yeah, and you know what? I was thinking that same thing, but no, I guess he was like, "Hey, I want to help. I want to help you find your
that, or he already knows it's
like
his
that.
daughter, and he's."
Or they could have just, just write it straight up, man. What are you hiding? Just say. She was like, "Oh, you have no one to celebrate with," and she's like, "No, I don't have anybody. You know what? I'll help you find your family, or you know what, I'll be your friend, or something like that."
Either way, it comes off
something
simple, creepy.
Well, yeah, because Billy D. Williams is one smooth dude. Lando Calrissian's always been smooth. I do like that they brought him back. Finally,
I do like that. Yeah, I do like that they brought him back. I wish it would have been.
He was going to show up in the other movies.
It wouldn't have been so, meaningless almost.
Well, not only that, but it was just kind of a plot device. Like they meet him out in Paisana, and apparently he was like, "Yeah, who do you think came here with Luke Skywalker?
I was with him
years ago. It was
me.
Yeah,
it's me."
And it's like, did you stay here this whole time, or do you just like?
I've been waiting on you guys.
To be here? I think what happened is that like Leia called him or something. I forgot with one passing thing. And it's stuff like that kind of bond. But positives, we got to go back to positives.
We're having a hard time finding positives.
It's a fun movie to watch. It's entertaining as hell.
There's some great action scenes. Even on this planet, there's a desert scene where
Oh yeah, well back on Paisano when the TIE fighter scene that's actually in the trailer when we get to actually see it fully happen. I thought it was a dope scene where Kylo Ren is flying at her in his TIE fighter, and he does that awesome kick-ass flip and cuts the wing off, and it explodes, and he just crawls out of the explosion.
Yeah, and then this leads us to one of our first real big instances of the Force showing how powerful these two are. Where she's able to stop a transport ship in midair.
Which, man, like, it was a struggle for Yoda to do it in Empire Strikes Back. That's when you get a lot of our Star Wars, like, nitpicky stuff is kind of kicking in. But, man, this stuff is not
it's not supposed to be that easy.
Right. You know what I mean? That's the problem I have is, like, this stuff...
You're making the Force
stuff is not difficult.
You're making it seem like the Force doesn't matter when you make it so easy for these people to be able to wield it. It's like it's a superpower. Like she's a superhero.
Not only that, but you can write a different scenario where that this doesn't have to be the scenario you wrote. You just wrote it because
you want her to be more powerful.
You want her to be powerful. You could have wrote a different scene that shows that she's powerful, but not in this way. It feels like
the thing is the easier they make it for her, the less interesting she becomes.
Right, because
there's no struggle. There's no struggle.
She just becomes invincible.
There's no struggle. It's like what people say about Superman. People have a hard time making a good Superman movie because he has all these powers and he's like almost invincible.
Right.
So I mean,
this leads us.
There's a big dramatic thing where they think that she thought she killed Chewbacca.
Yeah, because Chewie got captured. Yeah. And by the Knights of Ren, who are just
the most useless fucking characters ever. They were the coolest. They were the coolest thing that we thought we were gonna get from Force Awakens. We were like, oh shit, I can't wait to see the fucking Knights of Ren. And then now they're like basically goddamn, Muppets. They go around and are like, and they fucking they all get killed by Kylo Ren in one scene.
In the end, you know what's crazy is that Rian Johnson, like, they asked him why he didn't use them. He's like, because I didn't know how to use them, and I didn't want to just use them, in a scene where they would be meaningless. Yeah. And JJ used them in a very meaningless way. Like he said, like I guess one of Johnson's ideas was to have the Knights of Ren in that throne room scene where Rey and Kylo fight all the Praetorian guards. And instead, they'd be fighting the Knights of Ren.
Then he'd have to kill them all.
But he was like, then you'd have to kill them. I'd be like, they would just be a waste of being there, and they ended up being a waste anyway. And it's kind of So they capture Chewie.
Well, with that,
basically Rey accidentally blows up the ship, and she thinks Chewie dies.
Yeah, when she uses it, she it's our first sign of our first tie-in to her being Palpatine's granddaughter, which shoots force lightning and blows up the ship.
And you had a very angry.
I have an angry take on this because, to me, force lightning is not an inherent thing to just Emperor Palpatine. It's a dark force. It's a dark force ability that any dark force user could learn. Just like, becoming a force ghost is something that you can, from the light side,
that you learn.
You can learn to do that. But become one with the force. But somehow I feel like that they use that ability to be like, oh, Palpatine. That was just my take, because the thing is Rey. The reason I say that is because Rey is supposed to be inherently good. And of course, in that moment, she was pushing herself. But it doesn't mean that she suddenly can use force lightning. It's a dark side ability. And you're breaking the rules there. That, to me, that's breaking the rules.
Not even breaking the rules. It's just, it doesn't feel
organic. It doesn't feel organic to me. Yeah, it makes sense.
It's something that's yet again written to be, it's written because she has to do something. Yet again,
or let me ask
you could have written it a different way.
Let me backpedal just a tad though. Interesting idea came to my mind. If this actually is what happened, then that makes me feel better about it. I wonder if, because of Kylo and her transference through the Force, maybe he did it through her. You think that that's maybe possible?
It is possible.
Maybe he did it through her.
It's possible because of their connection, but the thing is, we've never seen him.
We've never seen him do it, but we know that it's happened to him in Last Jedi. Snoke shot him with force lightning, so we know that he's seen it. He knows, maybe he learned it through him. So we know that that's possible. But still, once again, he's never used it. But that would make more sense to me, that maybe he used her as a conduit to use the Force lightning to blow up the thing because of their Force connection. So that makes me feel better about it if that's what actually happened. But to me, the movie came off as that, that's our connection, her connection to Palpatine, which is
question
bullshit.
I have. So, when you saw that ship explode, did you actually think Chewbacca was dead?
Well, I didn't think he was dead. But the first time I saw it, I didn't realize that it was bullshit. Because the second time I saw it, there is obviously a second transport ship. It's there. It was too obvious the second time.
Because you've seen the movie more than once.
Yeah, I've seen it twice.
One time. I saw it the day it came out. So my memory of those types of details are very, very fun.
I didn't think they were going to kill off Chewie. I was like, there's no way this fucking safe-ass movie is going to kill Chewie.
You know what's crazy? That's the exact same thing I thought. I was like, it would have been bold. It would have been seriously.
Oh yeah.
Not experimental, but it would have been bold.
It would have been personally, I wouldn't have liked it. I wouldn't have liked that, but it would have definitely been bold.
I don't want to see Chewie die. Damn. Who wants to see Chewie?
Yeah, I know,
die?
right? Out of all the characters who needs to die, it needs to be C-3PO. Blow that motherfucker up.
They soft killed him
and then brought him back.
I'm using air quotes that you guys can't see, because they wiped his memory, and then they did the same thing they did with Chewbacca, where they re-uploaded his memory.
Yeah, well, let me say this: we go back forward to the Kerry Russell character in that whole scene where they go to this planet to get this information from C-3PO, which he apparently can't tell them the information they need because he can't speak Sith because it's against his protocol.
Who knew that was built in this whole time?
Anakin Skywalker, when he built him, I guess at some point maybe they threw that in there. I don't know, but
well, we have to remember that
the best character in
his mind was wiped.
Yeah, the best character in this new movie is Babu Frick.
Babu Frick.
He's the little alien thingy that's working on C-3PO. He is hilarious. He's just like, he like,
yeah, of all the apparently he's like a mechanical.
yeah, I
genius,
guess. But he's pretty funny. He's pretty interesting.
So in order for C-3PO to learn how to do it, he's got to get his mind wiped to read the dagger.
They have to basically do kind of a reset kind of thing that wipes his memory,
like a factory
and then he's able to read out the Sith stuff that he. So they do it, and then it wipes him, and he reads out what where the location of this other wayfind the planet is, because it was on the dagger. He read the dagger.
Yeah, and this whole time, like Kylo and the Knights of Ren are still hunting them.
Yeah.
And while he's down there looking for them, they're able to infiltrate the Star Destroyer and.
Well, Rey is.
Rey is and they're doing it because they need to.
They need to get Chewbacca. Yeah.
No.
Yeah, the reason they go to the Death Star, they go on they're on that planet and they get the information from C-3PO, and then after that they realize that they're there.
Oh yeah,
and so when she is about to leave that basement, she feels that Chewbacca's still alive. So then they know that they need to get on the ship. Kerry Russell gives away this pass that apparently was going to get her off the planet, but she decides to give it to them because whatever, because she just shows back up later anyway.
Yeah, I know. What is interesting is that at one point that whole planet's destroyed.
Oh yeah. They use one of them.
Steven,
big.
Apparently, like they could just buy this stuff like at Star Wars, like Home Depot or whatever, like your local mass planet destruction stores in Star Wars, because apparently you can just have like Death Star weapon capabilities.
Well, the Emperor,
now,
his minions or whatever were just working for 30 years building all this shit.
Oh my god, Steve! Apparently, they must have the best workforce I've ever seen, because they were building. What, they built like thousands of these
fucking
Star
ships.
Destroyers, and I'm like, where did they get the material for this? It doesn't. It like was this stashed here the whole time? My guess is it was probably made like during.
Let's not even go into it, because who gives a shit? Because we didn't learn it in the movie.
Yeah, like I might get. If I was gonna say, my guess is
don't try to rationalize it.
While he was the Emperor, like they didn't just start making it the day the Emperor died or whatever. That stuff must have been stashed there for way before that.
Who cares?
So they go on the Star Destroyer and they just start. I was gonna say they just kind of. It seems a little too easy for me, the way they're able to get through the Star Destroyer.
Well, they have this new robot that they found that's like a damn damn megaphone on wheels, and
he's cute though.
Yeah, he's cute, definitely. He's like hi, and then he like goes up to him, he's like no, I don't want that. No. So yeah, he's cute, nice little droid. So apparently he's able to do something to be able to make it easy for them. I can't remember. I don't know, but
anyhow, they're there to rescue Chewbacca, like I said. But this is
they
where
run through the ship
out. And
just shoot everybody and easily get in there.
Yeah, but like they're running down corridors and they're not even ducking behind stuff. They're just like running in, like blasting people.
Yeah. It's like parkour, but shooting stormtroopers.
And I understand by this point. I guess they're super badasses and whatnot, but still. Man, lasers fire straight. That's why it didn't make sense why stormtroopers were never able to hit anything. But I guess they're even worse. And the First Order troopers are worse now. So that's where.
But Kylo Ren's on the planet, and they're looking for everybody, and then.
But this is where Rey finds out that she's a Palpatine.
Yeah.
And this is where we get all that backstory. Remember there was that flashback that we saw in Force Awakens, connecting back to that, where we learn about the fate of Rey's parents. We learned that her father was
she doesn't learn about her being a Palpatine in this particular scene. It's a little bit later when they're on the Star Destroyer, like out in the main area. Like first, remember she goes
while
they
were on the Star Destroyer. I'm skipping ahead.
Remember she goes up in the damn his quarters and finds that room where she has that Dark Force moment where she sees herself as a Darksider, which you saw in the trailer. With the double,
which everybody was like, "Oh man, she's gonna like it's gonna be a dark like Rey."
Yeah, Rey's gonna turn dark and blah blah blah. So then she comes out of that, and then Kylo. This is when they have a Force connection, and then he's like, "Where are you at?" And and then he knocks her.
He literally says that.
and then like she knocks over the helmet, the Darth Vader helmet, and then he's like, "Oh, you're in my quarters." So then she, then that's when they converge.
Well, don't they have like a cool like mind?
They do have a mind fight.
Star Wars
Force transference
mind
fight.
lightsaber fight,
Yeah.
which is pretty dope. I'm not gonna lie there. That's pretty
Yeah, the
cool.
Force transference stuff is pretty cool. I like that. But then that's when they finally meet in the hangar, and then that's when you find out the whole, you're a Palpatine, and then
Well, that's when you find out that her father was
the son of Emperor Palpatine.
Yeah, what I just said, son of Emperor Palpatine, and like I guess he like they were being hunted or something. They would be
They were
being
hunted by the Jedi, the Jedi dude, right? The guy that was on the
the Jedi hunter Ochi, and we learned that I think her parents were executed, I assume, but that's why they left her on Jakku. But there's the weird like the flashback scene like doesn't her mother say like, oh yeah, she's not on Jakku or something ridiculous like that?
I'm not sure.
Maybe the guy should go back and check on Jakku. But that's where she's left on. We learn why she's left on Jakku and all that kind of stuff, and she learned she's a Palpatine, which should be a soul crushing thing. I mean, when Luke found out that Darth Vader was his father, he was pretty distraught about it, and she doesn't seem to take it too hard. She keeps it inside.
She has a scene where she's upset, obviously, but there's too much to do. She can't feel it right now. Because Finn comes up to her and tries to ask him about it, and she's just like, you ain't gonna understand. You're not gonna blah blah blah, and that's when they go to this.
You want to get to like one of the most obvious reveals in the whole movie, where there was this spy within the First Order that was giving information to the Resistance, and
that's how they get away. Hux. That's it. Yeah, that's how they get away.
And that's how they get away is he like shoots like a bunch of stormtroopers, and then he's like, shoot me. You got to make it look like
Donald Gleason, scary Hux.
Yeah, Donald Gleason, and then I think does Poe shoot him or Finn shoot him like in
Finn
like
shoots him in the
Finn
shoots him in the leg. Yeah.
Yeah, and then I mean, it's not even worth saying, but he ends up getting killed anyway.
And then the what's the actor's name?
He's great actor. I'm gonna look it up while you make noise. Richard E. Grant. He's called General Pride. Yeah. He's a new character. Actually, of all the new characters, he's probably the best one.
Yeah. So, and apparently he's been working with Palpatine for a while. So they've known each other for a while. Whatever, who cares? Does it really matter? Because we don't learn anything about him.
No, other than the fact that he's a badass.
I guess. So he just shoots. He's sususpicious of Hux, and he just shoots him. And then
doesn't even question.
He's like,
you're the spy. You're the spy. Oh,
so this movie. I guess we really don't like this movie.
I do. What's crazy is that
we have all these complaints, but we did enjoy it. It's what's crazy.
Which is kind of weird to me. I enjoyed it because it's a fun roller coaster ride. It is fun. But like a roller coaster ride, you're on it just for the thrill.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're on it just for the cheap thrill of it. There's not a lot of meat on this bone, if I use that.
This bone has some flavor. But it's like, It's not thick. It's not like thick and juicy and like you can't really get down there into it. It's kind of like a spare rib versus like a real meaty rib. Yeah, boy, I didn't go that dark. Damn. But so they head off and I guess they know they have the Wayfinder, right?
They've got the dagger. And they don't have
no. They go to they go to Endor. This is where they go to Endor because that's where it tells them to go because that's where the old Death Star is.
Yeah, it's like an ocean moon of Endor. There's a specific name for it. I completely forgot. They only mention it like once, but there's a forest moon of Endor where the Ewoks are, which we saw in Return of the Jedi, but now there's an ocean moon of Endor. Again, planets can have multiple moons. The Earth doesn't, but the other planets do. So they do, but it's
so they go. So
it's very contrived.
Yeah, it is. So this
is where we meet. This is where we meet Jaina and the other stormtroopers who had defected, if you will. Yeah. And this is where there's the Death Star remnants, which is really cool.
And let me go ahead and fix something that I said. I messed up. I said that whole scene where she sees the dark. That's in this scene. I got confused. The scene where she sees the dark side of her is in this scene.
Oh, yeah. Oh, wait, yeah, when she goes to...
I confused myself.
It's cool because, I mean, you want to talk nostalgia and fan service.
Yeah.
We're literally going back to the second Death Star. You see the throne room that's in shambles. You see, like, all kinds of, like, things that you remember seeing from Return of the Jedi. And while I was watching, I was getting flashbacks of, you know, that scene. I was really surprised there wasn't, like, a forced flashback of what happened at the end of Return of the Jedi and Rey was seeing it.
Yeah.
Or something cool, like, something to really, you know, thrust in the importance of this specific area and the reason why, you know, she's here and why she's going to be, you know, influenced or like kind of try to be seduced by the dark side and all that kind of stuff. Because for all the negative things we've said, you know, at this point she has to resist like Luke had to resist. You know what I mean? There's that connection there. You have to resist the dark side, the dark path that is kind of embedded in you because of your lineage. And like Steven said earlier, this whole movie is kind of bucking the idea that you have to go down a certain path because of what your family is, because of what's expected of you.
Like, I guess I could say that this is kind of a knock on Luke Skywalker himself. You know, well, I guess you could say it's a knock mostly against Rey because she didn't really even have parents. Like, she barely grew up with parents. So it's like, you can't really, like, her choosing to decide to be bad at this point doesn't really fall in line because you're like, her saying, oh, well, my family's bad, I should be bad too, doesn't make sense. There's no, you never met your family, your real family, so it can't affect you.
Well, that does lead us to what happens at the very end of the film, which I think a lot of people didn't like, but I actually found it to be very reinforcing of the thematic depth that we were just talking about, or what you're talking about. This idea that she never knew her family as the evil Palpatines, but she knew the Skywalkers, or she interacted with them enough.
Family's more than blood,
Right.
But in that scene, she sees the dark side of herself, and then she finds the Wayfinder, and Kylo Ren's there.
That's where she finds them. Yeah, and they have I tell you, the one thing that I really do love about this movie from a filmmaking perspective is when it comes to Star Wars, especially in this sequel trilogy, the films look fantastic. Yeah. Like they look stunning. This whole sequence with the ocean and where they're fighting on like these like, I don't know, like broken ships and broken things in the water is really fantastic. It's kind of a it's a mirror image or a mirror feeling of what happened on Mustafar. Yeah. You know, volcano planet, ocean planet, you know, light side versus dark side. You know, two characters who have a connection with one another, a personal connection with one another. Now, very interesting.
And then once again, this is another moment where it kind of, in retrospect, this is kind of weird. So at this point, I guess Leia decides that she feels that Ben,
she needs the help.
Ben needs to contact Ben and really, you know, try to bring him in, you know, reel him in. And it seems that is convenient that at this moment she's about to kill Rey. he's about to kill Rey.
What we've learned is that I think Leia is very, very force sensitive, and she's able to connect, like, from far away. Sure. I think she understands. She knows what's happening. I mean, there's even an intercut scene where, like, you see Leia walking away, and two characters just, you know, saying like, "Oh, she knows what she must do. She must sacrifice herself."
Yeah. Well,
and that's how they end up finally kind of not killing.
Well, she reaches out to Kylo and kind of stops him, and then, you know, then Rey takes advantage of the moment and then kills and would have killed him.
Stabs it has his lightsaber and stabs him. And I kind of regret, I don't know if this ended up on the cutting room floor or if they just didn't have time to do it or if they just didn't have time to render it. I would love to have seen an interaction between Leia and Kylo.
Yeah.
I don't know if that would have originally happened, and had Carrie Fisher lived, that would have been a very powerful thing that I think the film could have needed.
Yeah, there was never a moment where they actually
to another level.
Spoke to each other in any of the movies.
No, there was just there's that moment in Last Jedi where he blows up where she is, and he hesitates because he feels his mother, and I felt like that familial mother-son connection was something they were really going to use, and they couldn't do it. They just couldn't. They couldn't do it.
They didn't have the material.
Carrie Fisher's not with us. I mean, and they didn't want to. I guess they didn't want to use body doubles or use CGI made characters to honor Carrie Fisher and all that kind of stuff, which we've talked about before. And so Rey stabs Kylo, and then and in my mind, I'm like, okay, this is how Kylo dies. Yeah. But no. We set it up earlier. Force heals him. Set it up earlier. Set up and payoff. Alley-oop, slam dunk. And here we are. And for me, I really liked that idea.
Yeah.
Because what this has done metaphorically, J.J. Abrams doesn't go too deep when it comes to metaphors and stuff like that. He's not that type of director. But I think he really made some strides here where the idea that Kylo Ren is now dead, but Ben Solo is reemerged, or he's survived, and I really liked that concept or idea that you have to kill off the bad part of you so the good part of you can
he says it himself. You have to let the past die in the last movie. He literally. Well, it's not even his real. It's his lineage's past.
What is interesting is that he was trying. You saw it in Force Awakens. You saw it in Last Jedi. You saw it even in this film. He kept pushing down his past self, Ben Solo. Yeah. He kept trying to just suppress it so much so that he could be Kylo Ren, but he was constantly battling it. And we thought that he had finally kind of defeated it in Last Jedi, especially towards the end when he asks Rey to follow him. But Ben Solo character reemerges because, metaphorically, the Kylo Ren character gets defeated and dies. Yeah. And I thought that was very interesting. I really liked what happened next with Han Solo memory.
Yes, Han Solo memory scene was probably the most emotional scene of the movie.
I'll tell you, Steven, like I said earlier, I thought, what did I say earlier when something I wasn't expecting? Oh, the flashback with Luke training Leia. I wasn't expecting Harrison Ford to show back up.
I did not think he would ever come back for another Star Wars movie.
I didn't think. I thought he was dead and gone forever. But he must have got a nice check or something to come back, because it was a very powerful scene. I would have, and this is something I've said, I love the scene. What would have been more powerful to me would have been Anakin Skywalker, because he wanted to be Anakin Skywalker so he wanted to be Darth Vader so bad that he had this manipulative thought that because of why he was being mentally manipulated by Snoke or Palpatine, whichever you want to believe, that Darth Vader was what he wanted to become and wanted to emulate. But I would love to have seen Anakin Skywalker come to him and tell him how wrong Anakin Skywalker was in what his decisions were and how he was duped, like his grandson was duped into going down the dark side. It would have been a nice way to connect the whole thing as a whole, as opposed to just having Han Solo do it. But having Han Solo do it connects it back to Force Awakens, because they kind of just do the same scene from Force Awakens.
I get that idea. I think that's an interesting idea, but I think maybe in that moment that would have been a little too late. I think that scene would have worked better. Something like that where he meets with Anakin would work better when he's still a lot more conflicted. I think in this moment he's a lot. He's definitely. I think the fact that Rey put some of her force herself inside of him. It's also part of why he is changed. That the light is being brought back into him, but also of course, his connection with his mother is part of that too. But I think that doing Anakin in that scene might have been a little bit too late for that. It would have been nice maybe at the end of the movie, or maybe before he died, that he looked over and saw. He looked over her shoulder as he was about to die and saw Anakin's Force ghost. Like, it's okay.
Well, I'll tell you something I really wish they had done, and from what I heard that they had planned on doing, but apparently didn't happen. From there, Rey takes Kylo's ship like an asshole and just takes it, leaves him there. Just leave him stranded.
Yeah, just leave him stranded. Takes his ship, like, fuck you, bye, and then she runs off to the because everything happens so fast. She's already on her. She's running all the way to the whatever the Sith planet's called, Exolol, whatever it's called.
But no, she ends up on Octo, because doesn't the the Wayfinder get like destroyed or lost?
Oh
or
yeah,
something?
it does get destroyed, but he has one.
So
no,
she
but
goes
he
to
has
Octo,
one. He has the coordinates to the place.
Well,
he
yeah,
has a
knows where it is
Wayfinder
now.
in his ship. That's how she knows how to get there.
No, but she goes to no. She gets another Wayfinder on Octo that Luke had, like in one of his caves, in one of his huts.
No,
remember?
that's not what happens. He has one already. What happened? Because what's the point of Luke looking for one if he already had one?
Oh, it is from Kylo's ship.
Yeah, it's from Kylo's ship.
Yeah.
He.
Oh, what? Oh, yeah.
She
Steven,
leaves.
you're right. What she finds there is she finds Leia's lightsaber.
Well, she leaves and she goes and
Yeah.
she's trying to. She's all upset. She's destroying the ship. She's like, I'm fucking done. And then
and she goes to it's a huge bonfire. She's having one hell of a rager.
And then she throws the lightsaber, and it's supposed to be just like from Force Awakens, shadowing Last Jedi. I mean, and then Luke's Force Ghost catches the lightsaber. It's like a Jedi's weapon should be treated with more respect. Wink, wink.
Yeah, the thing is, people thought that whole scene was just
picking on Last
him
Jedi,
shitting on. But to be honest, by the time Last Jedi ended, Luke
it
realized
makes
the error
sense.
of his ways.
Yeah.
So everybody, I guess, has amnesia.
No, it makes sense. I didn't find that to be a dig at Last Jedi.
Well, I mean, but you know the way the internet is. They take something like that and they run with it like the Olympic torch.
No, the scene makes sense. It's good. It's a good scene. I do think the Force Ghost Luke looks a little weird. I don't know what they did with the CGI. I think he looks a little weird. But that's just me.
He's very blue.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just a little bit too blue. I don't know what it is. But so they have a whole scene. He explains how, that the things that he did was a mistake, and explain.
Yeah, his fear ended up getting to him, and living here on this island was a mistake, and people, like I said, think that that's a shot at what Rian Johnson didn't know. I think it's affirming what he did in that movie. Yeah, Rian Johnson didn't like say oh yeah, this is the way Luke Skywalker should be. He should be living on this island, like hating himself. No, he exposed how he made Luke
Skywalker more human. Yeah, right. I mean, he's not just some laser sword wielding hero.
He had faults and he had doubts and he had fear that got the best of him, and in the end he had to overcome that fear and those self-doubt in order to do something heroic. And that's kind of what Rey has to do now, because Rey has self-doubt. She just learned that she's a freaking Palpatine. Someone that I guess she's aware of how evil he is. I mean, he hasn't really been around for
she saw
30 years.
Some old movies.
I guess on Jakku they had one hell of an archive.
Yeah, I guess
on Palpatine. But she takes lo and behold, she gets invigorated. She decides to go to Exegol using the Wayfinder that's on Kylo's TIE fighter, like you said. But she gets in his X-wing.
Yeah. Luke has this whole scene where he raises it. It recalls back to Empire Strikes Back, where the ship is brought out of the water from Yoda.
But he's able to do it as a Force Ghost, which is interesting. And apparently, it's still in working order. Who knows? The
water does not erode X-wings. Apparently,
those things are built to last. So she goes there, and this is where we get to our epic climax of the film, which is kind of crazy. It balls out crazy.
It's like goddamn Harry Potter or something. That's what it reminded me of. It's like the end of Harry Potter, Deathly Hallows, where there's two wands and their energies meet in the middle, and it's like, oh! And then somebody's gonna have to die by the end of it. Yeah.
Wow, that I never actually thought of that. So the Resistance decides, if they're gonna go down, they're gonna go down fighting, like I guess all heroes do, but they're gonna send out like Lando to get some help.
Well, they don't. You don't see him. They don't see. They don't say it. He just goes. It just happens.
I guess that's the assumption. And then, so of course, rousing speeches. Finn is now. What I really liked about Finn's character arc is you see how he goes from reluctant hero, fearful hero, scared hero to now a leader in the final climax of this film. People I'm going to stick this in here, and I know it's maybe going to piss people off. People didn't like his character in Last Jedi. They thought he was a waste.
He had one of the only great arcs of the movie to me.
To me, not only that, but they're like, oh, like they felt like he regressed in Last Jedi, specifically at the beginning when he was about to jump ship literally, and Rose Tycho stops him, and we'll get to that in a second. But for me, I want to say this because I've been wanting to say this for a while. The only reason why I think Finn fought courageously in Rise of Skywalker and what I'm looking for in Force Awakens is because of his love and his affection and his friendship with Rey. At the end of that movie, he's still fearful as hell. Yeah. He's a reluctant hero, just kind of throwing himself in there because he wants to save his friends. And then at the beginning of Last Jedi, his friend who he was fighting for is not there, so he's not fighting for her. If anything, he's leaving to go find her.
Well, he's leaving to stray her away from where they're at. Yeah, he's got that beacon. He's got that beacon to find her and to save her and to keep her away from out of harm's way. So he's fighting for Rey, and it takes him going on that adventure with Rose to realize that there's more worth fighting for than just a fight for one person. Yeah. You're fighting for, good. You're fighting for hope. You're fighting for the
galaxy,
future, man.
All that kind of stuff. Yeah. You're fighting for the future of not humanity, but you know what I mean. You're fighting for things bigger than yourself and bigger for just one singular person. So by the time you get to this film, he's now a leader at the end of this movie. He's leading people on firefights on top of, super
with space horses,
Star Destroyers, with space horses and stuff because they can't detect space horses.
I do like the space horses. I don't care what anybody says; they're pretty cool.
It's old school. If anything, it was a
damn Braveheart moment in that,
Yeah, it's an homage back to Return of the Jedi, where the Ewoks were fighting with like rocks and sticks against like lasers. You know what I mean? It's kind of, I found it felt like more of an homage. But of course, Rey's got to have a final
Rey goes in
there with her grandpa.
And just walks up to it's a big booga booga moment where Sidious is just like, I'm here. I'm gonna talk to you from the shadows, and then I'm gonna be like,
it's like, where have you been? I've been here this whole time.
And the thing is, I don't want you dead. I want you to come here so I can put my soul into your body.
Yeah, it does. And then, but earlier in the movie, he wanted Kylo Ren to kill Rey, so now Kylo Ren could lead all these Star Destroyers and ships that he's got. Yeah. And I'm like, isn't that kind of like a conflict of what was going to happen? But I guess maybe he already knew that Kylo couldn't kill her anyways, or something
that, or
like
that. The thing is it seemed like either way he wanted to take whoever was the strongest of the two.
I guess that's true. And somehow Kylo Ren gets off of that moon.
Yeah,
and he gets there and he shows up. Yeah. The moon is Kef Bir. That's the name of the moon.
He had a backup ship, just like the Chewie thing. So. There was a second ship there.
Yeah, he got off there somehow. So he's there.
Whilst all the fighting is going on in Rey's.
But there's a lot of like there's I tell you, for all the negative things we've said, there's a lot of things that the filmmakers and the people who made this movie had to put into it to make it go. Like there's a lot of editing, cross-cutting between the main battle, between the different characters, between what's happening with Ben and Rey and Palpatine.
One of the best scenes.
There's a lot of balls in the air here we have to deal with.
One of the coolest scenes is where Rey is in there with Sidious, and Ben is shown up, and now the Muppets, or as I call them, the Knights of Ren, show up, and they're about to kick Kylo's ass, and then the best Force transference moment where she gives him the lightsaber through Force transference, and then he kicks all their asses. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, because what we didn't say is that he threw his lightsaber, Kylo Ren lightsaber,
into the ocean in that scene. Yeah,
which is a very symbolic thing.
Which is what he wanted to do when he was with his dad in Force Awakens, but then he killed his dad.
Instead, he killed his dad instead. So, mirror scene. But she transfers to him Luke's lightsaber, which is very interesting because Ben Solo is the last Skywalker.
It was his. Remember in Force Awakens, like that lightsaber belongs to me.
Yeah. Yes, well, he did say that, and then he finally got it.
On the light side,
but now he has it as Ben Solo, not as Kylo Ren, and she has Leia's lightsaber, and it's really, really.
It's a great moment. It's a great moment.
They kick ass. I mean, it's a great moment. The problem for me is Palpatine, like, what? He has a lot of exposition in the scene, and he's just like saying something. Like he goes through the whole dyad thing, like, and he's like, "Oh, I want you to kill me because then I'll, I'll transfer into you."
And all the Siths before me, and
that leads me to believe, and like all the Siths before me, but it also leads me to believe that perhaps, he transferred himself before he died on the Death Star.
Yeah.
Back in Return of the Jedi. That's the only real hint.
That's the thing is
how he survived.
So what's if he can somehow transfer his body into other people?
Is he immortal?
Then what's the point of him having his old Sidious body?
Yeah, his old decrepit body this whole time. At what point did he develop this trait? Did he always have this trait? I mean, there was in the extended universe, the old stuff that's now Legends when it comes to Star Wars stuff. This stuff is like Elseworlds, doesn't count as canon or anything like that. From what I read when I was younger, is that he had like on some planet somewhere, and I'm butchering this, is that he had like other bodies he could transfer into, so that he would effectively be immortal and not be able to be killed.
Yeah. There's even
something like that
stuff in
part of it
in the new canon where they go to this underground thing in Jakku, on the planet of Jakku. There's this underground lab of sorts that has these kind of robot slash clones of Sidious. Who knows? Like they look like them, but they're like part robot or something. It's weird.
Oh, kind of weird.
So I don't know what the whole point of that was, but to have that in the book and then not follow through with it really in the movies. But I mean, it's just too much here. It's too much.
Also, there's also the idea that he can like suck the life force out of people.
Yeah, like
I'm like, where did that come from? I mean, yet again, all of this stuff is written in here for convenientness of plot, and not necessarily for logistical plot stuff. And granted, we're dealing with fantasy here. Not everything is logical, or reasoning is kind of thrown out the window and all that kind of stuff. But man, you're just taking like huge, gigantic leaps here without even like trying to put in any effort to make it work.
Like, accept this, accept that.
Yeah, just here we are. I guess okay. I guess we'll have to accept that.
So Ben kills all the Muppets, and then joins Palpatine.
Joins Rey, and then that's when he sucks the life out of them, and he's like full power. He's at 100%.
He's like, "Fuck you guys," and he like lifts them up in the air, and because
like, throws them around, but then he like shoots off like a big super duper.
Well, once he realizes when he had them together and he did that, he started sucking the life force. Like, oh, with you guys together, I can rejuvenate my own body. Ha ha!
And no, he breaks off of like that the life, like I don't know, the things that were like keeping him alive. So now he doesn't need them, and he just steps out and then he decides to like electrocute like all of the ships, because by this point, like Lando's finally showed up with like everybody in the freaking galaxy showed up, and it's like, where were you guys on Crate at the end of Last Jedi? I guess nobody was available that day. But he shows up and everybody's there, and it's kind of like a I guess not a redemption, but it just shows like it's another metaphorical thematic thing where like the whole galaxy is now rising back up against the Emperor, unlike before. You know what I mean? Like back in the original trilogy time, the Empire was able to rule with an iron fist, but now, being so many years later and like time and has moved on, people are now able to resist properly or rebel properly, and they don't want an emperor anymore. They don't want evil to rule again. All that metaphorical, thematic stuff is in there, but he throws out that lightning and he deactivates like a giant electromagnetic pulse, and like knocks them all out of commission for like a minute. And I'm like, I guess that was cool.
Cool, I guess.
It would have been cool if he had like blown up a couple of ships or something.
He might have.
I
don't know. I think there was a few things that had.
I heard that the Tantive 4 exploded, like was destroyed. The Tantive 4, which was the ship that Leia was on back in the beginning of Episode 4, New Hope. Like that was one that exploded.
Oh, and we need to mention Wedge shows up in this.
Oh yeah, Wedge shows up. Nice callback.
I love Wedge. Wedge is cool.
Yeah, Wedge shows back. Apparently, that actor did not want to
He
be in
did
this new
it.
trilogy.
Well,
I guess
he
they
made it. He
eventually
was
got
like,
him.
well, I guess it's the last Star Wars movie of this saga. My last chance to get a paycheck. Here we go.
Yeah, Lando shows up in Millennium Falcon with Chewbacca and Babu Frick somehow.
Hey!
Yeah, he shows up, and I don't know about your screening, but my screening, people cheered.
Oh, I love Babu Frick.
People
He's my
cheered
new
and
favorite
stuff.
character.
I mean,
Yeah.
the one amazing thing about watching a Star Wars movie, is the crowd reaction is so unique.
That's. I mean,
I've been getting a lot of that with the MCU movies, but there's nothing like that Star Wars crowd. Seeing that and they start cheering and all that kind of stuff. So that communal experience is something very, very special to Star Wars, regardless of the film. Like I think I said this early in one of our episodes way long time ago that, when I saw Attack of the Clones and Yoda showed up to fight Count Dooku, the whole crowd went bananas. And I was like, when was that, 2002? I was like 15.
Yeah.
And I had never seen a crowd cheer at a movie theater before, ever. Like I didn't know you could do that. I didn't think it was legal, and then I hadn't really experienced that up until that point, and now it's kind of a common thing. But so everybody shows up. It's a big climactic battle, like we've said. So
Kylo gets knocked down a hole, and somehow
he gets thrown down a hole,
and then so now it's just Rey and Sidious and
this is the scene. I don't want to cut you off, but this is the scene that I kind of wish was done a little bit better. Yeah. Because it was so important, or it was literally important. Rey does defeat Palpatine, but she gets talked to by all of the different Jedi from before her.
Yeah.
And you hear like everybody's voice. Like you hear Anakin's voice, you hear Obi-Wan, you hear Yoda, you hear Mace Windu, you even hear Ahsoka.
You hear Qui-Gon
Ahsoka
Jinn.
Tano from hear Qui-Gon Jinn, and apparently they got all like the people to do the voices. I think, And what I thought was going to happen, what I wanted to see happen, all of the Force Ghosts show up to back her up. You know what I mean?
Well, that once again, that reminds me of Harry Potter. It's just like Harry Potter, where they're all there at the end.
It's still. I don't care.
I don't know that I needed them to be there.
I don't know, Steven. That's when I would have liked to have seen Anakin Skywalker.
It would have been nice to have a moment where you see him, but I don't know that it necessarily needed them to. Are you saying that they needed to help her defeat him?
Not help her, but like they're like, I don't know if you want to say help. They're there encouraging her. They're there instead of just the disembodied
You wanted to see
voices.
a shot of all the Force Ghosts sitting there, like you can do it. Like literally seeing them. Yeah.
If you by this point you've already fan serviced
to the 11th
power,
that would have been fine
for it, man.
Just go. That would have been fine with
me. They're not there like attacking Palpatine.
No.
Or anything
Okay,
like
well
that,
then that's fine.
There were some people who wanted not to have like the Jedi Force Ghost show up, but also have like the Sith Ghost show up behind Palpatine, and you'll see like Darth Bane and Darth Plagueis and others and whatnot.
That's going too far.
There were people who wanted to see that, or perhaps that maybe that was part of the at one point a concept. That's
super nerdy. We don't need that.
That's super nerdy. But the concept, like you said, is that the
all the Jedi before her,
the Jedi have figured out how to become one with the Force. Like that's a Jedi thing. That's not necessarily a Sith thing. Because the Sith deal in absolutes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's either living or dead. You can't live past your dead. Dead's pretty definitive.
But somehow
pretty absolute.
Sidious has developed an unnatural way of staying alive.
It kind of throws that whole absolute.
He has to stay
with
He wants to stay within physical bodies, while the Jedi will live on in the Force. And so they use apparently all of the past Jedis use themselves through Rey to defeat Sidious.
I think it's more symbolic than actual literal. You
don't think that they helped her in any way?
Well, I think
that's the way I see it. It was like Avatar: The Last Airbender kind of thing for me.
I always thought it was kind of like is symbolic, like she is.
She is one with the Force in that moment.
Yeah, like something like that. Like she, like the lineage of the Jedi. In quote, I put lineage in quotes. Like the legend of the Jedi lives in her. Our concept of the Jedi lives in her. Like those things.
Sure.
and she encapsulates all of those things because this idea that she's like the last Jedi, but we've also learned in the Force Awakens that not the Force Awakens, we learned in the Last Jedi that the Force isn't only particularly inherent within the Jedi or the Sith. The Force is everywhere.
Yeah.
Someone can be Force sensitive and not be a Jedi or a Sith. They could just be a kid with a broom on a planet somewhere.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But I think our concept of the Jedi and our idea of the Jedi lives within her.
Sure.
And then of course, like the opposite is for Darth.
She is the ideal person to be a Jedi without somebody that's been shaped by the traditional teachings of the Jedi.
She had very little formal training that we've seen. A couple of days on Ahch-To and in like a year with Leia.
Yeah.
I mean, she had about crazy. People like to say like she doesn't have any training to have any to be elite, not elite, but to have like force, to be force powerful. But she had about as much training as Luke did. Luke trained for a day with Obi-Wan and then a couple of days on Dagobah.
You could even say she was a little bit more prepared because she spent her youth training of sorts because she knew how to wield that staff and beat the shit out of people.
Right. Well, she, from what we understand, is that she probably had a pretty rough upbringing. From what we understand. I mean, Luke at least had his aunt and uncle. A stable life. She had to learn how to survive on her own, which takes a lot of skill and fortitude.
You could say
and
he was a millennial that had to go up into honestly, Ray probably makes more sense than Luke did, but we don't want to press on that nerve.
Round. Yeah, we're not pressed on that nerve. Man, people are gonna shit.
Oh, they're gonna hate us.
Yes, they will. But anywho, she ends up defeating him. And he ends up exploding like a firecracker or whatever. And Kylo crawls out from whatever hole he fell down. I guess it wasn't too deep.
Yes, he somehow made it. Yeah.
And basically she kind of dies from the exhaustion or from the effort of killing Palpatine, and he crawls over to her because he's all messed up, and then he decides. And he decides that he's going to cradle her and kind of cry and be sad about it. It's a very emotional scene. And I know there's a lot of people who have a romantic agenda when it comes to these two characters.
So for some reason there's certain people that that think that there's a romantic connection between these two.
And honestly, I'm not going to say that you're wrong, and I'm not going to attack you for it. If you believe
I'm not going to attack you for it, but I didn't feel it at all, ever.
Well, I felt like there was more to their relationship than just being romantic. Like we said, there was this Force connection. Now we know there's a literal kind of lineage connection there, and we also know. I just feel like there was it was more than just romance.
You can be male and female and be friends or be close and not have to have sexual tension.
No. But that's kind of thrown out the window in this scene here.
When they decide to have she decides to kiss Kylo Ren. And it bothers me not for the reasons why I hate the concept of Reylo or I hate this romantic concept. It bothers me because I already felt that that bond was there. When he's cradling her lifeless body, holds it up to him, and he heals her and brings her back to life. That act in and of itself told me all I needed about how connected and how powerful their connection is, whether it is romantic, whether it is through the Force, whether it is whatever. It's already there visually for me. I didn't need the kiss to reinforce that. Yeah.
Didn't need it. I mean, it's there. It's just not necessary to me. That bond's already there. And, of course, then he leans back and dies, disappears, and I guess he becomes one with the Force.
Well, when he does that, and then once that happened, then Leia's body disappeared. In that same moment, it was like she was hanging on and she was still with him, though dead. But when he died and became one, she did too, which was a good touch, I think.
Very emotional,
very very good touch there. I thought
it's a very good touch there. How they mother and son connection.
Yeah, her bond was beyond the grave.
Yes,
and yeah.
And then they have the really kind of typical Star Wars celebration scene that we
saw. Chewbacca gets his medal.
Yeah, Chewbacca gets his medal.
Well, it wasn't his medal; it was Han's medal.
Hugging
so he got second-handed medal. So it's not really his medal. So it's still kind of a slap in the face.
Yeah, because remember he didn't get one at the end of
New Hope. Yeah.
A New Hope.
Yeah.
And then he decided. Then as everybody's hugging, and that's when we get that weird scene between Lando and thing. And of course, and then Rey shows up, and the three main characters have a big old hug, group hug and whatnot. Big celebration. One thing we didn't talk about is I don't know if you want to touch on this nerve. Talk about a nerve here, but I just want to mention it because I think it needs to be mentioned. They completely wrote Rose Tycho's character completely out of this movie for no reason other than just.
It would have been better not to have her in the movie at all.
If you're not going to have her do anything.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. If you're not going to have her do anything, you might as well just not have her in the movie. I mean, because they even asked if she wanted to go on this adventure. Like Finn asks her, and she's like, "No, Leia wants me to do something." And of course, we never see what that thing that Leia wants her to do. I mean, also like Dominic Monaghan was in the movie. From those of you who know Lord of the Rings and Lost fame. And I don't even know what his character's name was. He was just a glorified cameo. I mean,
apparently, this is
and what's his name?
You know how he got in the film? He and JJ made a bet over like a soccer game. I guess about if some team won, and I guess the team Dominic Monaghan wanted to win. I guess the bet was that he would be in the next, be in the Star
Well, let me
Wars
tell you this. I mean, like, also another friend that, we got him back in Force Awakens is Snap Wexley character. He got killed in this movie.
He got iced.
Yeah, dude.
Played by Greg Grunberg, who was in the pilot of Lost.
Yeah.
So I guess he and JJ were friends for a very long time. Greg Grunberg was also on that show Heroes that had 4 seasons.
He goes down in the battle at the end.
He does go down in the battle in the end. He's in the canon books, if anybody's wondering.
Yeah.
At least that's where I.
He's good. He's good in that character is great in that book trilogy, the Aftermath.
Aftermath.
He
I still need to read the third one.
When he's in his teens, he's in that book. It's pretty good.
Yeah, it's.
I wish we'd have seen Bones, really man. Good. I really wanted to see Bones. Bones is this repurposed clone droid from the clone era that it turns into an assassin. He's crazy.
A lot of people thought that that's what was going to happen with C-3PO because he got the red glowing eyes. But back to like Rose Tycho, apparently from what I also heard is that she had scenes with Leia that they weren't able to get put into the movie, like they got cut because I guess they just didn't work when it came to the rendering of Carrie Fisher and whatnot and all the extra scenes. And I'm like, if you put her in the movie to just interact with an actress who is no longer with us and is not really there, you really didn't want her in the movie. You could have had her go on the adventure, and the movie would have still worked. It would have still worked. They just didn't know what to do with her character. And yet again, they introduced new characters in this movie that we really didn't but like they really didn't do anything with either. You know what I mean?
Excuse me.
We already have I can hear you.
Yeah, I'm choking over here, guys.
Yeah, I know he's dying over there.
Maybe somebody's force choking me because they don't like what I'm saying.
Yeah, force choking him through the computer, and it's like she was already a pre-established character. We already had like a backstory on her. You could have just had her do something.
Yeah, it would have been better than introducing new characters. Yeah.
We didn't have introduced new characters. That's where we get. And Wired already talked about the Lando thing.
So now
we have the final. We
have kind of a prologue or epilogue.
A prologue, epilogue, and this is where we get. This is where we
go back to Tatooine.
Encompassing thing. Go back to Tatooine of all places.
And we go back to Luke, Owen.
Well, thing is, like that place looked pretty intact. I thought the stormtroopers burned that thing up.
They didn't burn the place. I mean, I think there was some of the other parts of it that had exploded, but the main part of it, she slides down into it like she did in Force Awakens. She slid down from the
a dewback or whatever it was. I don't know if it was a dewback.
Well, she slides down the sand at the beginning of Force Awakens.
Yes,
she kind of does the same thing here, and she buries Luke and Leia's lightsabers. Which
Luke kind of makes sense, but Leia never went to Tatooine or anything like that.
Yeah, but there's a connection.
I understand this. I understand. Well, first, I mean, man, this is another thing that's like you don't really need it. Why is this here? She opens up her new lightsaber that she's constructed. I guess just to show us as an audience that
she's got
she
a
has
cool
a
yellow
blade.
lightsaber.
And I'm like, this is only there to show us that she has a new lightsaber. What they could have done is just like have a shot of where it's on her, it's like on her belt.
Yeah.
And we would have been like, oh,
well, they wanted to show that it was
lightsaber.
yellow.
I guess. Well, it's like a little less showy would have been nice.
It could have been a funny thing where
see that could have been in the visual dictionary, like she has a yellow lightsaber now.
Sure,
that would have been extra stuff we didn't need to see in the movie. I know it's a 1 second shot, but it's just unnecessary to me. I would have done it differently.
Yeah, well,
granted, I'm not J.J. Abrams.
Well, whatever, it's done now. It's canon.
But whatever. So she buries him, and then apparently some random woman comes along who just happened to be traveling out in the desert.
Yeah. Nobody's been here in years.
Yeah, I know.
I was just roaming the desert right at the time that you were here.
Yeah, I know. How convenient. How convenient. And she's like, oh, what's your name? And she goes, Ray. And he's like, oh, Ray who? And then, of course,
she looks off into the distance.
She looks off
into the
distance.
And the Force ghosts of Luke and Leia are there. And they're like,
yeah.
You know, say it.
You know, say it.
You know, go ahead, come on. You know you want to say it.
Ray Skywalker.
She does it all James Bond like Ray.
Yeah.
Ray
Skywalker. And that's the end of the movie.
That's it. And she goes off into the two
Skywalker saga.
She goes off into the two sons, which is how all three trilogies end.
Very true. And that's the end of the Skywalker saga. Yeah. Now we've gone way past our normal time. Way past our normal time. But Steven, I just want to say this. People think that I don't think this is going to be the last Star Wars movie that ever exists or that we've ever seen. From what I understand, there may be one in 2022, for all I know. I know Lucasfilm's probably going to announce something pretty soon because right now they're concentrating on their television area and they're concentrating on other things. They just came out with a new, video game and whatnot. But yeah, I don't think this is the end of.
Well, I think we're definitely done with these characters. And this.
I don't see Ray.
I don't think
Ray,
we're
Finn,
ever
and Poe
continuing
showing up
with
again.
this story again.
No, I don't think we're gonna get movies, but I don't think they're going to be like episodic. I don't know if we're gonna have
right now, like you said,
and if we
they're dealing with TV. The Mandalorian has been a hit, and
big hit. Second season
will be at the end of this year, it seems. They got the Obi-Wan series, which I'm interested in. Not super psyched, but I'm interested in. And
I think they got to move. They have to move past that 20-year gap in between the prequels and the original trilogy because they're just filling that gap up.
Well, this is
with a lot of stuff.
There's been a recent rumor that they're gonna do a movie that's 400 years before the original trilogy. Before this saga, and it's called the High Republic. When and Yoda is a younger Yoda, so Yoda will be in it. I'm already going to tell you right now, I don't want this because I don't want Yoda in the movie. I don't want any. I want all new characters. I want to go so far back that nobody's fucking from the original movies. It's like
the thing is, they're afraid to do stuff like that because they don't think it'll sell. What we've learned about, I think, the sequel trilogy, which is even more prevalent than it was in the prequel trilogy, and even more prevalent than it was in the original trilogy, is that Star Wars is a massive, massive money-making machine. And part of the agenda behind whoever is running Star Wars is making money. And you need
Star Wars is the brand.
But the thing is, you need stuff to market with. Like, for example, the sequel trilogy, they really heavily leaned on the fact that, Mark Hamill's coming back, Carrie Fisher's coming back, Harrison Ford's coming back. So you get all the old fans, you get the new fans in there. The old fans are going to buy stuff, the new fans are going to buy stuff, everybody's going to be making money.
You're not going to have growth if you don't start taking chances.
Right,
and that's creating new content.
Steven and I are like, you're just making...
You're just watering down what we started with. What we love about Star Wars, you're watering it down the more you keep hanging on to that nostalgia.
And we saw how that nostalgia is festering within the fandom and creating problems. Yeah. And now, and with all those problems now, maybe they're too afraid to go back and make an Old Republic television series or Old Republic movie series or whatever. But I think you need to move past this because we've just shown that there is it's not waning because this movie's going to make $1 billion if it
It's getting
hasn't
close.
already by the
It's
time
getting close.
this episode comes out. But there is a hunger for Star Wars, I think, still, but there's a hunger for more different stories as well within Star Wars. And but you can have loose connections. Like The Mandalorian is loosely connected to the overall Star Wars oeuvre. Like they go to planets that are like that you may have seen before. There are certain things that happen within. Like you've heard of bounty hunters, you've heard of Mandalorians. You may have seen them in Rebels, in the Clone Wars animated series. You may have read about them in the comic books or the books. So there's like loose connect. There's so much within the Star Wars world that you can utilize to have different connections in everywhere.
Sure.
So you don't have to connect everything back to the Skywalkers, the Palpatines, the Solos, the original characters that you made all that money on and created all that nostalgia with. And honestly, by this point, I think you have to move past that because time is what it is. We're in 2020 now, and things need to progress a certain way.
Yeah, totally agree. So we didn't love the movie, but we had fun with it. It's just as a movie that's supposed to do what it was supposed to do, which is tie up the whole saga and honestly, even just to a smaller extent, tie up the trilogy. It was a mess. It's a mess.
Oh yeah, we didn't even talk about certain cinematic things, but we did. But the movie is a bit of a mess. Plot structurally, it's a bit of a mess when it comes to just plot details. Some of the character stuff is a little messy, but honestly, some of it's also really good. I think some of the thematic depth is very, very good. I think the acting is great.
Yeah, acting is good. I can't complain about that.
The acting's really good. I mean, from what they have to work with in terms of plot and all that kind of stuff, and certain dialogue sequences is really good. What's his name? Ian McDiarmid, I think, slips back right into the Palpatine role really good for what he's working with. Being Palpatine, just hitting those iconic lines. Yes. And, and stuff like that. The thing is, like what we've said earlier, is that each of the films within this sequel series has felt like a different movie. And I also think each of the movies within the original trilogy felt like different movies. So that seems to be par for the course for Star Wars. But in the modern world of franchise building, it's a little problematic when you want more continuity.
I mean,
when you want more cohesion. And they could have made this movie more cohesive with the first two had they have taken threads from the first and from Force Awakens and Rise of Sky and Last Jedi and kind of built off of them. Instead, they tried to do that as well as build a whole new thing by bringing in the Emperor and bringing in all of these things. And it's like, by this point, you needed to be more cohesive with the first two films if you indeed wanted to make everything kind of fit together well. And they struggled with that with this movie. I don't hate this movie.
I don't hate it. It sounds like we hate it.
Honestly, on Letterboxd, I gave it a 3.5 out of 5.
I gave it a 3.
And Steven gave it a 3, and I'm more leaning towards a 3 versus a 3.5 when it comes to my overall rating. But, you can only do half-star ratings. You can't be making decimal points out there. So, I mean, like, I'm in that 3 to 3.5 range, and I think it's rewatchable. It's not, like, absurd. For example, I rewatched Episode 1 and Episode 2 and 3 and all the other ones. Episode 1 and Episode 2 are tough to get through when it comes to dialogue and plot and stuff like that. The sequel trilogy, I think, is more easier to get through.
Yeah,
in my opinion.
Though you could say with my 3, I give it 3 based off of the thing that people want me to say, which is, you need to watch Star Wars more like a child. Me giving it a 3 is giving that oomph of me being somebody that loves Star Wars no matter what. I still love Star Wars. It doesn't change, but just like loving people, you can love them for their faults too. And I love Star Wars even though it has faults. So that's where I think we should end it here. We got to end it.
Yeah,
this is a long extended episode. I hope you guys enjoy our rant on Rise of Skywalker. Please tell us how wrong we are in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. I mean, we don't mind criticism. That's what we're here for. And if you agree with us, please let us know. Yeah, but where can we find you, Andrew?
You can find me on Twitter at Kevzilla06, as well as my YouTube channel, Kevzilla Productions.
And you can find me on Facebook, Stephen Billings. You can also find me on Instagram, posting all my goodies I buy. You can find the audio for this podcast on Podbean and Apple Podcasts. And so in a couple weeks on our next episode, so we're getting into Oscar season, we'll be talking, the next episode we're going to talk our favorite movies of the year. Of last year.
Yes.
Last year. So we're
2019.
I know we're a little behind a lot of people. A lot of people have already put out their lists, but we needed to catch up. There's a few movies we needed to see, and so we're going to put out do our best of 2000, our top 10 of 2019 on the next episode, and then after that we got the Oscars coming up. We'll be talking, building up to that, talking about who we think should win and blah blah blah. So that'll be it for this episode of the Cinema Discovery Project. Thanks for listening, and hey, keep on watching them movies.
I know I will.